this is Editor's Take. I'm Sakshi Batra, and with me is Gaurav Choudhury, is the Deputy Executive Editor of Moneycontrol, and we are going to be discussing about how the poor IIP data is going to reflect in the upcoming GDP numbers. Thanks a lot, Gaurav, for joining in. Now, we've seen a contraction for the second consecutive month, a 4.3% contraction in the month of September. What does this indicate about Q2 GDP numbers that we are going to see ahead, considering that we are already at a multi-year low of 5%?
Yeah, so now it appears increasingly certain that the Q2 GDP numbers, that is real GDP growth numbers for July to September, is going to be below 5%. So we are possibly staring at a sub 5% GDP growth number after several years.
Yeah.
That's not good news for the government. That piece of data, that piece of statistics is probably telling. It tells you about the extent of a deepening deceleration that would have spread across the broader economy. And it also does tell you that India will probably lose its status. Now we would not know until the numbers are out.
Yeah.
Will probably lose its status as the fastest growing major economy in the world. That is something that the government will probably keep a keen eye on. But having said that, please remember that this is for Q2, that is July to September. We are now in the third quarter, and there is some glimmer of hope that there is some revival taking place. Clearly, the revival is not decidedly V-shaped, but it seems, if you go by what consumer goods sales data, particularly cars, from successive contraction, it has moved to a positive growth in the month of October. Whether it is a one-off, whether this spike is one-off because of festive season sales or festival season sales, or it's going to sustain, it remains to be seen. But if it holds, then I think there is some sign of revival taking place.
Absolutely, and that is what I was coming to, since we've already seen improving car sales in the month of October as well, and now that you are saying that we are in the third quarter, what will be the expectation for Q3 GDP numbers? Will there be, especially keeping in mind that the government has also come out with several measures, the RBI has also been taking several steps of reducing the interest rates. Do you think all of this will be taken into account, and probably we can hope for a better GDP growth figure for Q3, if not Q2?
Yes, clearly. I think Q3 GDP figures will be not far, but it will be better than what would have been recorded in Q2 and Q1. Primarily because we have also entered the construction season, what is in India sometimes referred to as the busy season. So you will see a lot of construction activity picking pace. This time also, the problem with the Q2 numbers is that because of a prolonged monsoon, and because the monsoon took unusually long time to retreat. In fact, monsoon lasted until the second week of October, whereas in previous years or in a normal monsoon year, the retreat takes place in September. So construction activity, particularly in the dry zones, dry areas, in some areas actually starts taking place in the last 2 weeks of August, and actually picks rapid pace by the time September kicks in, the middle of September. That was not possible this time, and that has showed up in the broader numbers, both in index of industrial production as well as infrastructure and core sector data. And that will also eventually show up in the headline GDP numbers. But having said that, in October, November, December, and upward, and later until March, we would expect a lot of construction activity to pick pace. And given the fact that the government is expected to front load a lot of construction activity now, as a matter of trying to revive the economy or engineer a quicker turnaround in the broader economy, and both the government spending and also spending by public sector undertakings, expected to do a lot of heavy lifting. I would expect that the Q3 and Q4 growth numbers, will be better than Q and Q2. But having said that, I think in the final analysis, when the final numbers for 1920 come out, we would probably be staring at a sub 6% annual GDP growth.
Absolutely. And lastly, Gaurav, I wanted to understand, since from the IIP numbers we get to know that manufacturing is clearly in doldrums right now, do you think services then could do the heavy lifting to actually contain the slippage that we are seeing in the GDP growth numbers?
That is what many would be expecting, and services clearly, the services sector accounts for about 2/3 of India's GDP. Clearly, if the Indian economy has to revive, the revival has to happen from services sector, because manufacturing, as we know, while accounting for about 18% of GDP, has also slowed down considerably. In fact, in index of industrial production or factory output data has actually contracted successively for 2 months. So clearly, the revival has to happen. The services sector will have to lead that growth. It has to be the engine for revival.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Gaurav, for sharing all that insight. Well, we may be staring at a sub 5% growth in Q2 GDP numbers if we are looking at that. But definitely a glimmer of hope is there as far as the festive season goes, and we may be able to see a better GDP figure for Q3, that is the December quarter, also going ahead. Also, the focus will be now on the revival on the services sector as well. Thanks a lot for joining us in this edition of Editor's Take, and do stay logged on to moneycontrol.com for more news and updates. Thanks for watching.